Beautiful. Oh, it is early. It is early. These times of days, just shouldn't exist. Should not exist. Had to go to bed so early yesterday. But we're here. We made it. Hello, everybody in the chat. How are we doing? Oh, why is the chat not updating? We'll see if that... We'll give it a minute. We'll see how that goes. Oh my goodness. This better be one of the best sprints that we ever did see. This has got to be the best sprint that there ever was. Hello, Sarah. How's it going? How are we all feeling? Cool. Tired? Welcome back to Sleep Deprivation, the stream. Hello, Yuki fan. Hello, Frosty. How are we? Hello, Sally. I can see the chat as well. Zach is weird. How are we doing? Are we prepared? Have you also had to completely sacrifice your sleep schedule in the sake of watching 20 cars go round and round in a circle? To be fair, I'll give it to the Australian Grand Prix. It was worth getting up for. It was worth getting up for the Australian Grand Prix. That was chaos ensued, entertainment all over the place. I am expecting similar, if not exactly the same, once again. Otherwise, I shall be very, very disappointed. I slept through yesterday. Waking up to Hamilton P1 was a dream. Yeah, we forgot, didn't we? We all forgot that Hamilton is just like the emperor of the Chinese Grand Prix. Is that what they have instead of a king? I don't know if they do anymore, do they? They just have a president or a prime minister. Don't know about Chinese politics. But Hamilton just goes so well in China. He's won here so many times. He's got pole here on all of his other debuts. So why not? Like, why not again? Even now he's debuting with Ferrari. I think we all just kind of were like, wow, it went so badly in Australia. Surely it isn't going to go amazingly once again. And Lewis Hamilton proving us wrong, as he always does. Excited about Lewis versus Max. I know it's 2021 all over again, is it? If we look at the qualifying board from yesterday. 2021, Hamilton, Verstappen, front row. Think it's just a precedent. There you go. There you go. Yeah, I thought they probably abolished the monarchy in some... Well, is it a monarchy? It's a monarchy if it's only a king or a queen? Why am I doing this kind of maths or mental sort of arithmetic at 2:36 a.m.? That's the question I've got for myself. But yeah, Max and Lewis lock out the front row. You got Piastri, third place, Leclerc, Russell, Norris. I think it's going to be a little bit spicy towards the front, you know, just because I think there are a few drivers in there that are very disappointed and want a big move to sort of prove to themselves that actually they can make up for what was a mediocre to okay run in yesterday's sessions. And then on the other side of that, on the flip side, you've got like drivers who are maybe a bit higher than they would have expected to be. And they will want to absolutely do everything they possibly can to make sure that they stay there. So it is a little bit of a weird mix after the sprint qualifying yesterday, especially because you've got, you know, Lawson, I would say a little bit out of place. Gasly didn't look himself in sprint qualifying. You know, coming into this season, really, really solid performance in the first race from Pierre. Just a little bit awkward. 8 a.m. here. Feel like I'm only one up at a normal time to watch the Grand Prix. It's all right. It'll all come back around, won't it? That's the thing. When it gets to the European races, I'll be saying to people, what? It says 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It's lovely. Just after lunch. People are like, look, I'm getting up at absolute crack of dawn. There are birds that are not awake yet. I'm just, well, leveling up, getting on. I'm wondering if... Ooh. Oops. There we go. Getting dinner right now. See, this is what I mean. That's just obscene to me. Quali's at 2 a.m. Just gonna stay awake. Yeah, that I was debating that. If this was the qualifying rather than the sprint, I probably would have stayed awake for the foreseeable. But because then we've got qualifying in a few hours, I was like, I don't think I could stay up for what would have been like 29 hours by the time we'd have finished qualifying and bits and pieces like that. So I was like, nah, got to try and get a little bit of sleep. I think I managed like 4 or 5 hours. But that's not what we're here for, is it? Let's get my let's get the stream loaded up onto the screen on my left. Why is Nico starting from the pit lane? I haven't actually looked, to be honest. I mean, he wasn't, starting anywhere close to the front anyway. So I would imagine it's just a setup change. And they've wanted to get it right for the sprint race and almost try it out before going into the actual race. So just realizing, you know what, maybe we didn't get this quite right. Let's change it around. And instead, they're just going for a slightly different setup. But obviously, if you want to change certain aspects of the car, you have to start from the pit lane. So they've gone for that approach. Where is sprint? Live F1. There we go. That's what we want. Yo, I love F1. Good. You're in the right place. Well, welcome. Come on in. Have a seat. Grab a chair. We're just getting set up. Just trying to get my stream to load onto my second screen. Saying it's connected. Saying it's trying. I've got the whirly wheel of stuff. We'll give it a minute. Let's hope Lawson can keep his seat longer. Yeah, it's a bit of an interesting one, isn't it? Just sort of staring down the barrel of the sprint race. Hamilton and Verstappen starting on the front row. Piastri and Leclerc just behind. I think Leclerc might try something a little bit special from that position. Nothing to lose at this point with Charles Leclerc. George Russell, Lando Norris starting on the third row of the grid. I think Lando Norris very disappointed with that. It was another, and we sort of had sprinklings of these throughout 2024, didn't we? Where Norris just didn't quite get qualifying correct. Maybe made a little error here or there, or had an issue. And it's not the first time that we've seen Lando Norris possibly a bit out of place when it's come to qualifying, just due to a little mistake, almost trying too hard. I sometimes think when it comes to Lando Norris's qualifying performances, he almost overdoes it. He doesn't want to just get pole. He wants to get pole by like 5-6 tenths. And it's like, just make sure you get pole first and foremost before you start trying to break some lap time records. which I think he just doesn't quite have that skill yet, which some of the other drivers do, to sort of almost judge, okay, I'm in the fastest car here. What can I do to just make sure I get pole position? Like, what kind of lap time do I project will get pole position? And a lot of the drivers are moderately good at that. Why is Haas Toyota Powers fading away? I think they just got it a little bit wrong over the winter, didn't they? It's one of those things, very vague and very sort of blasé to say, but it does just feel like nothing they wanted to work on has quite clicked. And we've seen this from Haas before, where they've brought upgrades and they haven't really been upgrades, they've been more downgrades. So I feel like we're just looking at that again and going, well, they did get this right and this right and this right last year, but in terms of getting everything right, getting all of the different aspects, maybe they've just gone down the wrong rabbit hole somewhere. And it does make you wonder, because obviously Ferrari changed their rear suspension and gearbox setup. Like, Ferrari did a full car overhaul effectively, whereas Haas decided not to. And we know that the Haas car does kind of follow the line of the Ferrari car for the most part. Therefore, I just feel like, yeah, they maybe made a decision here, there, or wherever, and it just hasn't quite worked out in the way that they were expecting it to, hoping it to. And maybe we'll see them improve as the season goes on, but it just hasn't quite got there yet. Behrman's starting 12th, though. It's not the absolute worst place he could be. It's just in Australia, they seem to lack a lot of pace. Maybe that was the conditions, though. And Australia is a little bit of a weird track. So when does it start? We're about 15 minutes out from the start of the session. In fact, shall I just double check that we have got everything all loaded? See, there's the old track map being bigger than I expect it to be for no real reason than me just slightly misjudging it. Let's put that like there. Why not? Track clear though, no rain. Showing some investigations for no reason. What's up? What's up? Hello. Hello, Twister Bowling. What a great name. 15 minutes. Yeah, we're nearly there. Kevin Magnussen. No, well, do you think firing Kevin Magnussen? I do think both drivers that are in the Haas seat now are better than Kevin Magnussen was last year. Like, I think that's the way it kind of is, isn't it? It's like, is Ollie Behrman an upgrade? I would argue yes. Is Esteban Ocon an upgrade? I would also argue yes. So I feel like the way that they've kind of done it, Nico Hülkenberg is the one for me. You know, you look at how much he extracted from that Haas car last year. Nico Hülkenberg was so quick, so good. One of the best drivers on the grid. That's what they're missing. But you never know. Ollie Behrman might get there. Taking a little bit of time for him to settle in. And then similar with Esteban Ocon. New driver, new team, new way of working. Has Esteban Ocon driven with Ferrari engines before? I don't think he has, you know. And that's also just another thing to sort of get used to. I can't think of a time he would have had a Ferrari engine. Renault engine, yeah. Mercedes engines, yeah. But I don't think of Ferrari engine in the past for Esteban Ocon. So he's got that to get used to. It's all there. What track is that on the wall? That is Singapore, which we are not going to for a very long time. Cyber Torrent, hey, not applicable. Happy to catch these races and sprint. It's 8 p.m. for me, so just got a shower after an amazing Friday. Oh, if only it was still Friday. It is Saturday here, but the early hours, if ever I've seen it. How are we all doing though? Oh, a lot of new faces in the chat. I feel like these races at odd times do instigate a few new people getting involved, just because you're probably not like me and up at ridiculous times of the morning to watch Formula One. Probably have reasonable sleep schedules and lives to be contending with. Imagine Lewis winning in Monza. That would just explode. That would just explode if Lewis won in Monza. Like, you think Charles Leclerc winning in Monza was one thing? I think it would just be another level, because you'd have the Ferrari fans and the Lewis Hamilton fans. Exactly midnight for quali. Oh, knowing Ferrari. Like, the thing is, with the sprint race, there's no pit stop. There is no pit stop to contend with. There is no real strategy to contend with here. Just 19 laps of purely going for it, gunning for the end, going as quickly as you possibly can. I do think that is where the sprint races kind of come into their own. The fact that there is no real tire strategy required. Obviously, you can't burn through the rubber and just put yourself in a position where you've got nothing left going into the final 4 or 5 laps or anything like that. But you can effectively just gun it. As long as you know the tires are going to hold on for 19 laps, you can just go for it. Whereas in the race, we do see the drivers obviously go through stints of, okay, let's slow down for this. Let's keep going for that. Let's balance these 2-3 things out. And they have to go through cycles of making sure the tires are in the right temperature window, keeping them in the right sections. And then it's like, okay. There's a little more strategy, I guess, to a full Grand Prix. Whereas here, run and gun. Get it going. Thank you for subscribing. Oh, Ayan. Let's go for Ayan. Predictions. We did a whole video this week, actually. I tried something a little bit different. Just sort of a quick fire predictions video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you've watched it. If you haven't watched it, it's still available. So obviously, there's a few things that have already gone moderately. But all of the predictions videos are based on your guys' predictions from the community tab. Or not the community tab, the posts tab on YouTube. Renamed the community tab. But if you do want to have a little look at what you guys voted for, this was what you ended up with. Obviously, we'll give you a little bit of leeway in that this is only the sprint. There's still a few things that could change. Piastri overtakes 2 multiple world champions for the win. Love that. Absolutely love that. But Lando Norris, you went for winning. I think it's still within the realms of possibility that he could win from 6th place. A lot to do, though. A lot to do in that moment. Podium, you went for Verstappen and Piastri. That's looking pretty good right now. In fact, they're in that exact order, 2nd and 3rd, at this moment. Surprise being Kimi Antonelli. Could definitely do something. Like, started 16th and managed a 4th place in Australia. Okay, the rain did play into that, and strategy kind of played into that. But starting 7th. And the problem is, starting 7th, there's not that many places I imagine he'll be able to make up. Because you're looking at the fact that all of the drivers in front of him are all in the top 4 teams, you know. The top 7 is pretty much locked out. 2 McLarens, 2 Ferraris, 2 Mercedes, a Red Bull. Although you voted Lewis Hamilton as the struggle of the weekend, like the driver to have the worst weekend. But 2nd place was Liam Lawson. Like, if you watch the video, I go through and break down all of them. And yeah, Liam Lawson was 2nd place in terms of the voting when it came to which driver is going to struggle most in Shanghai. And that is looking like could come true very, very quickly. Very, very tough sprint qualifying for him yesterday. Russell will somehow end up at the top. Russell, yeah, had a very, very solid Australia. I just don't know if the Mercedes car is in the right window when it comes to this circuit. We saw last year that the Mercedes car is very sort of picky with when it decides to perform and when it decides maybe not to. So that's the only worry I've got with the Mercedes car at the minute, is how picky is it going to be with this circuit, with this setup, with everything else that's kind of going on. I'll have to see, but there is Lewis Hamilton actually, just looking at the stream, starting on the front row, all cameras on him, of course. I think it's a little bit sort of obvious maybe to go for best team being McLaren. I don't know if they will score the most points across the whole weekend though, so that's what you're kind of looking at. If McLaren sort of come away from a weekend to see themselves as the best team, probably do have to double point scoring and making sure that they outscore everybody else, especially considering how the Constructors' Championship looks right now. And then also the flop team, you guys went for Haas. Esteban Ocon, a little bit off the pace yesterday. Ollie Behrman starting 12th though. It's not the worst thing in the world. But it's more the Constructors' Championship, isn't it? It's Alpine, Racing Bulls, and Haas. How those three teams were the three teams not to score points last weekend, I'm not sure. You know, Tsunoda and Gasly looks pretty much set for point scoring places. Haas, I can understand not getting on the board, but Stakes Albert then with Nico Hulkenberg getting 6 points, like already is putting them in actually quite a strong position in terms of the constructor standings, because Alpine, Racing Bulls, and Haas, to get 6 points is going to take them a good few races, you'd imagine. Especially if that top sort of 6, 7, 8 places, once Liam Lawson gets into the swing of things, is locked out by those top 4 teams. You're only looking at battling for 9th and 10th. 2 points and 1 point available. You know, today you're looking at maybe one of the teams outside of McLaren, Mercedes, Red Bull, and Ferrari scoring points in the sprint. Just because you're like that top 7 locked in. And then how we go from there. Daniel's first words of the chat just says Sauber. Have I misspelled Sauber or something? Is that what you're trying to say? I know. I think it's right. Charles will win this. Where is Leclerc, mates? Charles, I think he's got an okay chance. Starting 4th is quite a nice place to start, especially because you've got quite a long run down to turn 1. You can position yourself on the inside. Will Liam ever get to grips, though? That's the question, isn't it? That's the question I can't answer. Hello, Vanguard. How's it going? And then when it comes to the Drivers' Championship, we will get a little bit more clarity when it comes to the Drivers' Championship. I always think you've got to give it sort of 5 or 6 races to kind of shake out a bit, to really know who's where and what's going to happen. So, got Norris at the top at the moment, obviously, and then everyone just in the order that they finished in Australia. Do I use a sim rig? If so, which one? I need some advice. I do... it is a GT Omega. I was sent bits and pieces of it for free, I'll be honest. Kind of put it out there. And I will be looking to kind of do a little bit more. The problem is where I live right now, it's quite hard to access and get to and sort of do regularly. Like, I have to put it up every time I want to do it and take it down and etc. etc. Once I move, which is slowly getting there, once I move, just hoping that I'll have a little bit more space, and therefore it'll open up the opportunity to do a little bit more sim racing, which would be quite nice. Like the first chat now gets extra attention, makes it a lot more interactive. That was the thing. We're always improving these streams. They're slowly sort of getting better and better and better, I hope, over the course of, what would this be? I think this is the 4th year I'm sort of covering bits and pieces like this. And, you know, you think back, if you go back 4 years to 2021 when I was doing these live streams, it was basically just me and a webcam. Like, me and a webcam, almost on my own. had a few viewers here and there sometimes, but get in there. Slowly get in there. On that note, we are a couple of minutes away from starting. I am going to run an advertisement just very quickly, just letting people know that I do that because YouTube has started sort of upping the number of advertisements it throws in to things. Just generally, I think you've probably seen that if you use YouTube regularly. So I'm just going to click the insert ad. You'll probably get an ad now. If you do, I apologize. But then you hopefully won't get one during the actual sprint race itself. Is the hope, the plan, the dream. Whether that comes true, we'll have to wait and see. Let's delve into the race board itself then. Make sure we've got everything set up. Some driver radio messages coming through. Let me just make sure that actually fits the box. There we are. Pop that to one side. 2 minutes. George Russell is given the 2-minute warning. You were gifted a premium. Oh, love that. What's my local time? It is just ticking over to 3 a.m. Do I think Lewis will get his 8th this season? Next year, I feel like is more so the opportunity I see for Lewis. I think it's just going to take a little bit of time to get used to the Ferrari. Like, I know he's got pole position here, which kind of goes against that. You could argue, well, surely to get pole position, he's got to have pretty much a full grasp of the Ferrari car. It's like, yes, in qualifying format, but also this is a track that he's very, very good at. It's a track that he thrives on. Going into more difficult tracks, different races, and still achieving the same thing, I think will be a slightly different question for Lewis Hamilton. Oscar Piastri getting a fist bump there just before we get underway. 45 seconds. Here we go. Again, your grid from top to bottom. Lewis Hamilton starting on pole position for the first time in his Ferrari career. Again, another pole position on debut in China. Max Verstappen starting side by side. 2021 vibes very much in play. Oscar Piastri starting in 3rd place on the 2nd row of the grid. Charles Leclerc 4th beside him. George Russell starts in 5th place with Lando Norris in 6th. And rounding out the kind of top 4 teams and points scoring places, Kimi Antonelli sneaks into 7th. And it's Yuki Tsunoda, the 2nd quickest Red Bull powered car in the sister team, starts beside Antonelli in the final point scoring place in the sprint race. Alex Albon and Lance Stroll, the 2 drivers that managed to get through to Q3 yesterday, but do start outside of the point scoring places when it comes to the sprint race itself. We are on the formation lap. You can see Lewis Hamilton carrying the cars around this first sector. And Alonso, Behrman, Sainz, Bortoletto, Hadjar were the 5 drivers to drop out of Q2 in yesterday's sprint qualifying. Doohan, Gasly, Ocon, Lawson, and Hulkenberg starting from the pit lane. So we are underway. No, I'd forgotten. Hang on. Give me 1 second. We're back. Sheer panic. Here we go then. We're underway. Formation lap. Getting set up. Lando Norris just weaving around in his McLaren car. Disappointed. Said it himself yesterday. But has the opportunity to improve. That McLaren car looking very, very quick indeed. Andrea Stella there looking on. The team that won the Constructors' Championship last year. Seeing if they can do it once again this year. But they'll also have their sights on that Drivers' Championship. Will it be Norris? Will it be Piastri? I don't think Andrea Stella will mind in the grand scheme of things. Hamilton then just coming across the start-finish line. It's going to take his place in the pole position box for the first time in what feels like a long time, actually, doesn't it? Lewis Hamilton. Drivers shuffling into position, just waiting for Nico Hülkenberg to come back around at the back of the pack. Do I use Sky or F1 TV? Unfortunately, Sky, because I'm in the UK and it's the only option. F1 TV, though, if you can get it, I think is a much better value for money purchase, to be honest. Liam Lawson is going to be the final car to take his spot. Hülkenberg pulling into the pits there. We'll keep an eye on that as we go through. But 19 laps, medium compound tyres across the board. Pretty much everybody on a scrub set. Is anyone on a fresh set of mediums? Doesn't look like it. And we're going to get underway. There's the green flag waved, 5 red lights before we get underway in China for this sprint race. And Lewis Hamilton gets away quite well, tries to cover off Max Verstappen. It's a long run down to turn 1. Max Verstappen tries to go around the outside, but Lewis Hamilton has got the lead and keeps it. Charles Leclerc under pressure from George Russell. Leclerc runs wide and Russell has to get out of the way of it. That's opened the door to Lando Norris to try and go around the outside at turn 2 for George Russell. George Russell side by side. Yuki Tsunoda also trying to hang on to his position. Antonelli has been outdone by Yuki Tsunoda at the start, but Antonelli stays in front and it's getting side by side again, and Lando Norris is pushed wide and Lando Norris is going to drop a couple of positions there. I think it was George Russell and Lando Norris side by side. Lando Norris drops down to 9th place then, and is also now under pressure from Alonso and Albon behind. Alonso getting in front of Alex Albon and trying to make that position stick for the Aston Martin team. Lewis Hamilton disappearing into the distance. Wonderful start in the Ferrari from Hamilton. Problem he's got now, entering this third sector, has to get this 11, 12, 13 all hooked up, and then the really long back straight all the way down to turn 14. Will Max Verstappen have a lunge this time around? Oscar Piastri drifting away from them. Leclerc also within striking distance of Piastri's car. It's George Russell who's the driver that makes a move, and Russell down the inside of Charles Leclerc, and Russell takes 4th place from the Ferrari. Man, Russell on an absolute tear to begin with here. Defending his life from Lando Norris, pushing Lando Norris wide, and Lando dropped down to 9th because of it, and then also making up a position on Charles Leclerc. Russell has got his elbows out and doing everything that he can to get his position gaining. He wants another podium out of nowhere. It was a surprise podium for Russell last time out, opened the door when Piastri had an issue. But Russell wanting another podium if he can get it. Hamilton and Verstappen still lead then. Piastri in 3rd place at this moment in time. Russell has moved up to 4th place. Leclerc down to 5th. Tsunoda is now up into 6th place in that RB car. He's got the best of Antonelli, and Lando Norris dropping down the order has put Tsunoda in a really solid position. Antonelli in 7th just behind. And then Lance Stroll in the final point scoring place. Stroll again ahead of Alonso here. Lando Norris trying to get back up into the point scoring positions, at least down in 9th place at the moment. Fernando Alonso, though, putting him under a little bit of pressure, is within the DRS range. DRS now enabled, of course, going into lap 2. Seeing those wings open up. Max Verstappen not quite close enough to Hamilton this time around. Lando Norris also not actually having a go. Oh, and we've got a Williams in the background. We've got Carlos Sainz side by side with Jack Doohan? No, Pierre Gasly. And Gasly has to give it up. Carlos Sainz in 13th, Gasly down to 14th, Bortoleto 15th behind Hadjar there as well. Ocon doing Lawson still at the back of the pack. Hulkenberg is catching up though to the back of the 20. Hulkenberg a distance away from Lawson, 2.5 seconds the gap. We'll see what Hulkenberg can do from there. Not expecting much from the Stake Sauber car, to be honest. Max Verstappen now outside of DRS range. So is Oscar Piastri and George Russell. So Charles Leclerc, the only driver within the top 5 that does have that DRS advantage going into this lap. Yuki Tsunoda has DRS to Charles Leclerc, though. Tsunoda is on an absolute tear. Of the drivers in that top sort of 6-7 places, Antonelli's got DRS, Stroll's got DRS, and that's the problem Lando Norris is going to have. All of the drivers in front of him in a bit of a DRS train. Tsunoda, Antonelli, Stroll, all within that DRS. Sort of Lando Norris just looking at Antonelli and going, could you gain a couple of tenths or so? Make sure that Lance Stroll is outside of that DRS range. Oh, and it was a lock-up from Lando Norris. They're just showing the replay of it now. Big lock-up from Lando Norris. Gets onto the dirt. Gets on the outside. And it was a Lando Norris dipping his own tyres, really, into the gravelly sort of dust/grass, however you want to see it. And George Russell also getting the go-ahead to push on and see if he can catch the back of Oscar Piastri. No real big changes of position there as we enter lap 4 of this sprint race. Hamilton, Verstappen, Piastri still our top 3. Russell, Leclerc behind. Tsunoda, the driver, still within DRS range of Charles Leclerc ahead. Antonelli as well. Lance Stroll just about clinging on to that final point scoring position. 0.9 seconds behind Antonelli, though. Lando Norris, a bit of a sitting duck. Liam Lawson also struggling in 19th place. And it's just showing that, one, it's really tricky to overtake here in China, especially when you don't have that DRS advantage to the car ahead and there is a bit of a DRS train. But also, secondarily, it is just the gap between the top 4 teams and the rest of the field. In qualifying, trim might be a little bit bigger, but when it comes to the races, you can see that the gap has really closed in comparison to last season, I would say. And you've got this ability for the likes of Tsunoda and Stroll to really get into the mix of it. Charles Leclerc makes any kind of error, Tsunoda's going to be able to make up another position. It's very, very tight in terms of those point scoring places. Tsunoda, though, was robbed, I would say, of points last time out in Australia. Just got the strategy a bit wrong, did the team. Tsunoda, though, was very, very quick and showing once again that he's starting the 2025 season in a similar vein to how he started 2024. Tsunoda just seems to really kick into gear at the beginning of the season. Sometimes does peter out as the season progresses. Whether that's him or the RB car is debatable, isn't it? The RB never seems like a team that develops incredibly well over the course of an entire season. But Tsunoda starting off as he means to go on. 6th place right now. Here's a replay of Liam Lawson. What's going on at the back of the pack? Just making a move on Jack Doohan. And lunges up the inside of the Alpine. Oh, nearly. Oh, and there is a bit of a touch. I was going to say nearly touches Esteban Ocon, but does touch wheels with Jack Doohan. Lawson and Doohan did touch there. And Lawson, a little bit of a bounce. Doohan onto the grass. It wasn't the cleanest overtake in the world. But we now have Liam Lawson up into 18th place. Hamilton, Verstappen and Piastri just coming onto that long back straight once again. And down towards the top of turn 14. Verstappen having a little look at Hamilton for the sake of having a look, I think. Collision has been noted by the stewards. Also seeing Hadjar and Bortoleto going side by side. Hadjar decides to try and make a move. Gets a little bit late into the braking zone. Bortoleto, though, holding on to that position. Hadjar stays in 16th. Bortoleto, the highest placed stake Sauber. Nico Hulkenberg has been able to catch up to the back of the 20 drivers whilst they're all fighting in traffic. He sort of had 3 or 4 laps there of just clean air in front of him as the German. So is now at least behind Jack Hewitt and within DRS range. Oh, is the Sauber of... oh, no, sorry, that's that. Oh, don't even know what that was. Just chaos. A little bit of chaos there. Down towards turn 2, turn 3 at the back of the pack. Antonelli chasing Yuki Tsunoda down. Still within DRS range. In fact, Antonelli, the only driver that has DRS inside of the point scoring places. The only driver that has DRS inside of the top 10. Kimi Antonelli in the Mercedes. Yuki Tsunoda kind of got the jump on him at the beginning. Maybe a little bit of that experience that Tsunoda has over Antonelli. Antonelli still getting used to how these cars feel getting off the line, and it is just a complete step up from Formula 2. He was only in Formula 2 for a season. And now Antonelli looking at the back of Tsunoda's car. DRS open. Has a little look. But not able to make a move this time around. Is Hadjar going to go again on Bortoleto? Doesn't look like it this time around. Hadjar again, though, going wide of the mark. Liam Lawson deciding to make a move on Esteban Ocon, and that's a much better overtake from Liam Lawson. Bit cleaner than the wheel bouncing that he had to do. And now running down towards turn 1 in 17th place, Liam Lawson. Hamilton still looking to elongate his lead. Oscar Piastri is starting to come back into things. And here's where we see the tyre development of these cars, because Piastri in the McLaren, we know that the McLaren in Australia at least did seem to have the better of the tyres. Here is Isaac Hadjar making a move on Bortoleto. An unconventional place to overtake, but Hadjar has gone for it in the RB car. He's going to get up the inside. Bortoleto not letting go, though, around the outside, and Bortoleto holds onto it. The Formula 2 championship battle has continued on into this Chinese Grand Prix weekend. Bortoleto and Hadjar going wheel to wheel for 15th place, and that is a very, very solid defensive maneuver from Gabriel Bortoleto. Hadjar going for it in a little bit of an unconventional way. Hadjar is also now going to be under pressure from Liam Lawson. Max Verstappen has closed the gap to Hamilton, so Verstappen and Piastri now deciding to turn up the heat a little bit on Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton still in the lead as it stands, though. Points for the top 8. It is indeed just the top 8. And Lando Norris on the radio complaining that he is struggling with the tyres. And Norris getting a little bit frustrated over the radio. His tyre degradation a little bit worse than others is what his race engineer is saying. And then Norris saying, look, you need to help me then. What am I doing wrong? How is everyone else holding on to their tyres so much better than I am? Lando Norris still outside of the point scoring places in 9th, and actually dropping away from Lance Stroll because of that poor tyre degradation that he's got. Oscar Piastri not having such issues. Max Verstappen also closing in. Hamilton saying on the radio he's already got front left graining on his Ferrari car. Hamilton under pressure then. Verstappen is now back within DRS range. Hadjar moving on, and Hadjar has, managed to get that move done on Gabriel Bortoleto. I'm just looking at the front runners at the minute rather than focusing on 15th place, but Hadjar has managed to get past Bortoleto finally after 3 or 4 attempts. But here comes Max Verstappen then down the back straight with Lewis Hamilton in his sights. Is he going to lunge this time around? Not this time. Hamilton keeps the lead as we'll go into lap 9 of this sprint race in Shanghai. It was pole position for Hamilton yesterday, and he wants to hold on to that first victory in a Ferrari car. Of course, it's just a sprint race, but a sprint race victory in your second Grand Prix weekend for the team just would go a little bit along the way, just saying Ferrari have made the right choice here. getting Lewis Hamilton in, and Hamilton has made the right choice moving over to Ferrari from Mercedes. Still answering that question every single weekend at this point. Max Verstappen, though, trying to be the thorn in Lewis Hamilton's side. Of course, the driver that stopped Hamilton's streak of drivers' championships when it came to the 2021 battle, all the way down through to the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix in 2021. These two were side by side, and once again, they are there. Verstappen still in the Red Bull, but McLaren want to get involved as well. And Piastri closing in. I was just having a little look. Oscar Piastri thinking about it. Who's my favourite driver? I'm a McLaren fan. I do enjoy just whoever's at McLaren. Obviously, Norris has been there a long time now, so big Norris fan. Piastri, too. Don't mind either of the two winning. Also quite au fait with a Pierre Gasly. Quite like a Gasly. Tsunoda I quite enjoy. I've always been a fan of the second Red Bull team as well. When was the last time that Lewis won a sprint race? Got to be all the way back in 2021. Surely. And Hadjar again looking to make some moves. Hadjar looking at the rear end of Pierre Gasly, decides to make a little lunge up the inside, and Hadjar gets that move done. Hadjar looking like an experienced pro out there. Some really, really solid moves, and Hadjar trying to break the toe. Pierre Gasly is going to try and come back around the outside of Hadjar, and does. And Hadjar couldn't really do much about that. The Alpine with the DRS just looking so quick through that first couple of corners, and then Hadjar back down behind. Liam Lawson trying to make a move on Gabriel Bortoleto, and Lawson gets the move done as well. Bortoleto starting to fall backwards in terms of the standings now, back from 15th to 17th in a couple of laps. Two different Red Bull-powered cars have made their way past, and Hadjar and Lawson trying to make their way up through the field. Ollie Behrman, we haven't checked in on, of the kind of rookies whilst we're talking about them. Still running in 12th place. Lapping fairly well is Ollie Behrman. Couple of seconds adrift of Albon, but then a couple of seconds ahead of Carlos Sainz. Got himself in this sort of Williams sandwich. Oh, and there was a little bit of debris there in that mix of Hadjar, Gasly, Lawson. I don't know who has lost a front wing end plate there. I have to see. Looks possibly like a Haas front wing end plate. Was it Esteban Ocon? No, he'd have been too far back, wouldn't he? I'll kind of keep an eye on which driver there has lost a front wing end plate. Oscar Piastri. Looking like his tyres are sort of coming to him again. Piastri going through cycles here. Felt like he was closing in on Verstappen, then fell away a little bit. Now closing in once again. It does just make you wonder, if you're in the dirty air, if you're kind of within a second of the driver in front of you, what's going on with your tyres? Because everyone seems to be able to get into DRS range. Then as soon as they do, their tyres seem to just start drifting away from them. And then they fall outside of DRS range again. And no overtakes inside of the top 8 throughout this sprint race. Looking at Pierre Gasly. Oh, Gasly's going to make a move on Carlos Sainz, we've just had a replay of. And yeah, I can see there, Gasly confirmed has moved up a position in front of Carlos. Carlos now under pressure from Isaac Hadjar behind, and Carlos Sainz really struggling in that Williams car to hold on to his tyres by the looks of things. There's a big queue of cars lining themselves adjourn with Carlos Sainz's rear wing. Sainz just really struggling. Really did struggle in qualifying yesterday. You might remember Carlos got out of the car and was not happy with the balance of that Williams. And Isaac Hadjar is going to make his weekend worse. Isaac Hadjar, before they even get down to the braking zone, is going to be ahead. And Carlos might lose 2 positions in a row here, because Liam Lawson is also trying to go up the inside, and he is. Carlos Sainz in one corner loses position to 2 of the Red Bull cars. Hadjar and Lawson managed to get past Carlos, and then Carlos peels off into the pits. So the tyres are completely and utterly gone for Carlos Sainz. And into the pits he comes. I'll keep you updated as to if there's any more issues with Carlos Sainz's car as well. See if there's any confirmation on the radio. Not that I can see. Just a box for Carlos Sainz and a fresh set of medium tyres onto that Williams car. Carlos Sainz not out. No, continues on. Just pitting for tyres, which is not what you want to do in a format where you're not forced to pit, because that puts him now 20 seconds adrift of Nico Hülkenberg and 8 laps left to go. That is going to be Carlos Sainz finishing at the back, you would imagine. Oscar Piastri, DRS wide open for the McLaren, but still nowhere near striking distance of Verstappen. Verstappen is starting to fall away from Lewis Hamilton once again. This top 3 have kind of been congested. They've closed up on each other various times. They've disappeared away from George Russell in 4th. Russell can barely see them anymore. Russell comes around the final corner and we'll see them all going through turn 1. But disappearing away from them. But Verstappen will now be on the defensive from Piastri. Russell and Leclerc have got a good gap between each of them. 3 seconds from Russell to Leclerc, a couple more seconds to Tsunoda. Antonelli still putting Tsunoda under pressure, though, is the only real battle that's continuing on inside of the point scoring places. Even Lando Norris looks just so far off the pace in the McLaren car, in 9th place at the moment. Looking unlikely to score points in this sprint race is our current championship leader, Lando Norris. Fernando Alonso behind, 4 seconds adrift, and everyone beyond that. Points looking almost impossible, but that isn't stopping them from battling. Hadjar still looking at Gasly. Gasly under pressure. Lawson's trying to make up positions too. Bortoleto falling away from the pack now. Esteban Ocon starting to close in on the young Brazilian. Here comes Piastri then down the back straight. Max Verstappen. Defensive maneuvers. Can Piastri make a move? Decides against it. DRS closes as they get to the braking point. And Verstappen will continue on to lap 14 in 2nd place of this sprint. And the 44 flags are waving for Lewis Hamilton as he comes down towards turn 1. Piastri maybe has a little look down towards turn 1 instead of down towards turn 14. And is just kind of put in his place again by Max Verstappen, positioning his Red Bull car in the way and allowing himself a little bit of breathing room as they come out of turn 3 through to turn 4. Verstappen, though, is now under pressure from Piastri. This looks like it's going to be the battle inside of the podium places. Hamilton fairly comfortably 2 seconds ahead. Verstappen on the radio, both of his front tyres absolutely dead. And I think everyone now struggling with the degradation. It was used sets of mediums up and down the grid after sprint qualifying yesterday. And it just feels like those used mediums are falling away from almost everyone. And that's why it's quite interesting, because we get to see which teams are really best at holding onto their tyres. And it looks like RB, McLaren in the hands of Piastri. Piastri also had the better tyre degradation in Australia, remember, in the mixed conditions. Piastri seems to be holding on to his tyres well. The RB car, Hadjar and Tsunoda are still going ridiculously quick compared to the cars around them. So those two really seem to be holding on to their tyres quite well. Lance Stroll is actually closing into the back of Antonelli now. Antonelli keeping himself within DRS range of Tsunoda will be able to keep the Aston Martin at bay. Hamilton just coming through turn 1, turn 2. 5 laps left then between Hamilton and his first win in a Ferrari car. And it's looking very comfortable because the two behind are still squabbling over second place. It's Piastri and Verstappen, the two that are fighting for position inside of the podium places. George Russell then 5 seconds adrift of the top three. Charles Leclerc another couple of seconds behind. Tsunoda is 5 seconds behind that. Antonelli, the only driver within the top 8, apart from Piastri, that's looking like they might be able to make a move. Isaac Hadjar is still on the run, though. Nico Hülkenberg making a position on Jack Doohan at the back of the pack. But Isaac Hadjar is on an absolute tear. And again, looking for a move on Pierre Gasly. Last time around, Gasly got him back at turn 1. Can Hadjar do it this time around? DRS within range. Jack Doohan comes back at Nico Hülkenberg, though, and does get that position back. Just goes to show there is an opportunity for overtaking, but you do need to have quite an advantage because the drivers can come back at you fairly swiftly. And here comes Oscar Piastri then down the inside at turn 14 on Max Verstappen. Side by side, the McLaren and the Red Bull go. And Piastri is going to be able to make that stick. The problem he's going to have is escaping away from Verstappen down towards turn 1. Verstappen now underneath the rear wing. DRS open in the Red Bull car. Can the McLaren get away from Verstappen? And down towards turn 1 they go, and Verstappen doesn't have quite enough in terms of straight line speed, so Oscar is going to be able to confirm himself that second place. 4 laps left to go. He's 3 seconds adrift of the lead, so it's still looking very, very good for Lewis Hamilton. But a very nice move from Oscar Piastri. Uses the slipstream, gets right underneath the rear wing of the Red Bull, and then just uses the fact that his tyres have got that little bit more grip to hold onto the inside line, runs it out wide on the exit of turn 14, and guarantees himself that space as Verstappen has to get out of it as to make sure that the two don't collide. Hadjar still looking at a move on Gasly. Problem is Gasly's also within DRS range of Ollie Behrman in front. Behrman, who's had kind of a slow but precise race in 12th place. Hasn't had too much to do as Ollie Behrman, now under pressure from Gasly and Hadjar behind. Let's see how Behrman deals with that. He's Alex Albon and Fernando Alonso have disappeared up the road, so you would imagine that if Gasly or Hadjar can get the move done, that would be the end of their run up through the grid that they've gone through today. 4 laps are left to go. Hamilton about to complete this one. 3 laps between Hamilton and victory in the Ferrari car. Then Hamilton 3.5 seconds ahead of Piastri. Maybe he was just holding back a little bit because it looks like now he's going to be able to escape away from it. Charles Leclerc is indeed catching the back of George Russell's car. That gap has been halved very swiftly by Charles Leclerc. And maybe the Ferrari kind of coming into its own when it comes to the tyre degradation. Hamilton complaining a little bit about front left graining earlier on, but now seems to be a bit more comfortable with it. Piastri and Verstappen would have caused themselves a bit of a headache by going for those battles. And Kimi Antonelli has also decided that now is the time to try and strike behind Yuki Tsunoda, who's got himself within half a second of the Japanese driver ahead. Can he continue on? Can Antonelli get 6th place from Tsunoda? Tsunoda finishing best of the rest by a considerable margin. He's ahead of both a Mercedes and a Red Bull. Is Yuki Tsunoda in that RB? Here comes Pierre Gasly on Ollie Behrman. Does manage to get that move done, does Gasly. So Gasly up ahead of Behrman. Hadjar is next in line. Lawson waiting in the wings as well. So Ollie Behrman's going to have a pretty horrendous final couple of laps. He's going to be looking in his rear wing mirrors for a lot of this time. Couple of laps left to go then as Hamilton comes across the start-finish line. Leclerc is now within DRS range of George Russell, so Charles Leclerc might be able to make a move. All of a sudden, that George Russell's pace just seemed to have fallen off a cliff, and George now under pressure from Leclerc. Leclerc lapping much quicker than him. You can see that a 138.1 from Russell last time around, a 137.3 from Leclerc is why he's now within striking distance and surely is going to be able to do it. Last Brit to win for Ferrari, Eddie Irvine. Ooh. That is a great. Thank you for the super chat, Perf. Massively appreciate that. My live timing is delayed. I don't think so. Not in comparison to my stream, at least. Maybe for you, you might be a little bit ahead of where I am, depending on how you're watching it. But for my Sky Sports, it's in line with where we're at. Hamilton then, one lap away. Couple of corners left to go. Goes down towards turn 14. Turns in and comfortably ahead of Piastri. Piastri's been able to escape away from Verstappen as well. And Hamilton and Leclerc have both been able to escape away from the front. Leclerc looking at the back of Russell, not this time around. Hamilton still in the lead. Leclerc trying to move up a position to get one spot closer to his teammate. But George Russell puts in the defensive maneuvers as the final lap tumbles away from us. And Charles Leclerc got a problem in turn 13. Undrivable, says Charles Leclerc. But he's still managing to make a little move on George Russell now through the middle part of this lap. And George Russell closed the door once more. If we had another lap or two, I feel like this move would be guaranteed. But Charles Leclerc has got to get it done now or never. Hamilton just coming through the middle sector and starting the final sector of the final lap. It's been a dominant performance from him. Charles Leclerc trying to close in on Russell. And this is where he's got the problem. He's saying that he can't get through turn 11, 12, and 13 in a clean enough manner to then be right underneath the rear wing of Russell. And he's quite right. He's dropped back a little bit as Charles Leclerc is going to get the DRS down towards turn 14. But let's keep an eye on Lewis Hamilton as he's coming around the final corner. And Hamilton is going to take a very, very dominant win here in Shanghai. What a way to start your weekend. What a way to confirm that Ferrari was the right decision. Leclerc hasn't been able to get past Russell. Russell's going to come home in fourth with Leclerc behind in fifth. Tsunoda, what a stunning drive from the RB car. He's managed to keep it ahead of Antonelli through the final couple of corners they come. Antonelli is going to finish in seventh place, and Lando Norris has actually been able to sneak up him to the top 8. I missed that move when Lando Norris got past Lance Stroll. Lance Stroll drops out of the point-scoring places, and Lando Norris picks up the final solo point. Lance Stroll in 9th. It was Fernando Alonso comes across the line, 10th place. Albon and Gasly then behind as well. Hadjar with a solid drive in the RB as well, up into 13th. Lawson managed to get ahead of Ollie Behrman too. He's up into 14th. Behrman and Ocon finish 15th and 16th. Carlos Sainz then finishes in 17th. Bortoleto, Hulkenberg, and Doohan, the final driver to cross the line. Let's have a little look at this then. Oh, there was a little bit of a tete-a-tete. Oh, and that's why Bortoleto lost so many positions. It was Bortoleto and Hulkenberg and Doohan all got together in the final corner. That's why Carlos Sainz was able to just nab past all three of them. Was wondering how Carlos Sainz managed that. Collision between Bortoleto, Hulkenberg and Doohan is what then allowed Carlos Sainz to sneak through. But that is the end of our sprint race. And I'm going to say thank you so much for watching. Massively appreciate it. And we will see you again in a few hours for qualifying. Lando Norris will be very, very frustrated with that 8th place. Kimi Antonelli, 2 points on the board. Not too bad. Yuki Tsunoda Stunning from the RB man, 6th place, ahead of a Williams, well, ahead of the Williamses, ahead of a Mercedes, ahead of a McLaren, and ahead of a Red Bull. In Liam Lawson down in 14th place. Charles Leclerc will be a little bit frustrated that he couldn't quite get that move done. George Russell at 4th place, and then our podium sitters, Max Verstappen in 3rd spot, Oscar Piastri in 2nd, and Lewis Hamilton takes his first win in red. Absolutely brilliant stuff. As I said, I'll see you very, very soon. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Maybe, click one of the links in the description. Maybe go ahead and treat yourself to a video whilst we wait for the qualifying to roll around. And I will see you in just a few hours.